Laughter rings out on screen, and Hollywood sells the perfect family image to the public. But there's a dark truth few dare to confront. These artists don't live double lives because they want to, but because they are forced to survive. In an era where harsh ethical standards, suffocating studio control, and the fear of exposure can wipe out an entire career, a single leaked secret is enough to ruin everything. They have to act not only in front of the camera, but in their own lives, each day a dangerous role. The question is no longer why they hide, but how they endured, what they sacrificed, and how they survived in an industry built on untouchable standards. One of the most iconic stories belongs to Dick Sargent. On screen, he entered television history as the second Darren Stevens in Bewitched, a familiar face on warm family evenings. But behind the studio lights, Sargent's life was a series of stressful and exhausting days, more so than any script could portray. He existed in an industry where, if the truth were exposed, everything could collapse in an instant. Studios not only forced artists into silence, but also fostered fear as a tool of control. Ethical clauses in contracts hung like daggers, tabloids stalked every rumor, and Sargent witnessed friends lose their careers because of a whisper. He understood the price of fame, and sometimes that price was himself. It wasn't until 1991, after leaving acting, that Sargent publicly came out as gay, becoming one of the first actors of his generation to do so. From that moment, decades of silence were replaced by a powerful voice for LGBTQ+ rights and awareness of HIV/AIDS. His courage came late, but it carried immense weight. Dick Sargent died in 1994, but his legacy lives on, a bridge between Hollywood's darkest period and the slow but irreversible progress that followed. Paul Lynde. His free-spirited humor, unmistakable voice, and sharp intellect made him an American television icon, a familiar face that made audiences laugh after just a few lines. But that glamour existed in a dangerous environment. Hollywood elevated him to stardom, while simultaneously placing him under constant scrutiny. The very charm and personality that made him beloved also made him an object of suspicion in an age obsessed with traditional masculine archetypes. Paul Lynde never publicly acknowledged his sexuality, not out of a lack of courage, but because it was a calculated silence for survival. Behind closed doors, he struggled with alcoholism, isolation, and the burden of a life torn between public image and private truth. Industry insiders knew, audiences speculated, but no one spoke out. The unspoken agreement was simple: entertain us, but don't make us uncomfortable. Lynde walked that precarious tightrope with sharp, intelligent remarks, touching the line, but never crossing it. Friends said he was haunted by the unspoken, a man who used laughter to mask a profound loneliness. When Paul Lynde died suddenly in 1982, eulogies praised his comedic talent, but remained completely silent about the price he paid. His career shone brightly on safe paths, but those very paths became an invisible cage that imprisoned his entire life. Charles Nelson Reilly. In the 1970s, he became an indispensable face on television game shows, especially Match Game, where his dramatic personality and quick wit always made him stand out among the guests. Every word, every gesture of Reilly's possessed an irresistible charm, but it existed in a coded language that the audience sensed but never named. His glamour was accepted as long as it was seen as a performance, not as personal truth. Reilly was extremely cautious about his private life, always avoiding any questions that could reveal his true identity in an industry where fame was synonymous with fragility. Behind the scenes, he maintained a decades-long relationship with Broadway director Patrick Hughes, a love that had to exist in the shadows. Hollywood allowed artists to be eccentric as long as they never publicly acknowledged being LGBTQ+. Riley understood that rule of the game. He offered audiences a safe, intelligent humor that didn't directly challenge social boundaries. His personality was celebrated more for its charming quirkiness than for its complete authenticity. When Charles Nelson Riley died in 2007, obituaries were filled with praise for his career, but almost completely silent about his personal life, even after the risks had passed. Riley's story exposed the paradox of Hollywood, where there was room for performances with an overtly gay theme, yet it tightly controlled the right of the very people behind that laughter to live authentically. Raymond Burr. He concocted one of Hollywood's most sophisticated and enduring fabricated stories, inventing lost wives and children to shield his private life from public scrutiny. For decades, Burr publicly recounted family tragedies that never existed, constructing a complete heterosexual persona that biographers later exposed as entirely fictitious. Maintaining this intricate web of lies wasn't driven by ambition, but reflected a deep-seated fear that shaped an era. In the shadows, Burr was in a relationship with actor Robert Benavides for over 30 years, a close bond that, publicly, was harmlessly referred to as a business partnership. Together, they built an orchid business, traveled the world, and forged a discreet, carefully guarded life away from prying eyes. Perry Mason's resounding success propelled Burr to one of the highest-paid television actors, but the price was a never-ending performance in real life. His fabricated stories weren't just fleeting lies, but an entire alternate biography maintained until the end of his life. When Raymond Burr died in 1993, the truth gradually emerged through biographies and investigative journalism. His concealment didn't stem from a deviance or pathology, but rather from self-defense, a survival mechanism in an industry that had destroyed many careers for far more trivial matters. Rock Hudson. He was the perfect embodiment of the ideal leading man that Hollywood once revered, a romantic icon that shaped the imaginations of an entire generation. His resounding film roles, followed by his transition to television with Macmillan and Wife in the 1970s, only solidified his unshakable star status. But behind that meticulously crafted image was a man living in constant fear of exposure. His short marriage to Phyllis Gates, lasting less than 3 years, had long been seen as a media stunt to quell the never-ending rumors. Studio executives controlled every detail of Hudson's public life, arranging dates with actresses, spreading romantic stories in fan magazines, while his real relationships with other men were forced into absolute secrecy. Hudson witnessed the McCarthy era devastating the careers and lives of many, saw friends blacklisted, and understood that living authentically meant destruction. When his AIDS diagnosis was made public in 1985, decades of cover-up instantly crumbled, forcing America to confront both the stigmatized disease and the sexual orientation of a national icon. Hudson's death just weeks later completely altered public discourse on AIDS, bringing the crisis, previously ignored by the Reagan administration, into mainstream light. His coming out wasn't a personal choice, but a result of his illness, yet its impact opened up an unprecedented dialogue in Hollywood and American society. Cesar Romero. His portrayal of the Joker in the 1960s Batman film series cemented his image in popular culture, creating a dramatic and charming villain that influenced how the Joker was perceived for generations to come. On screen, he was colorful and confident, but in real life, his decades-long celibacy fueled endless speculation, which Romero skillfully avoided. He appeared at film premieres alongside glamorous actresses, convincingly portraying Latina lovers, and never directly addressed the persistent rumors. In Hollywood, many understood the reality, but to the public, everything remained vaguely discussed, never confirmed. Romero's career spanned the 1930s to the 1980s, long enough to witness the changes in how Hollywood dealt with gender and sexuality, yet he never felt safe enough to speak the truth. His refined charm served as the perfect armor, and his public image was subtly crafted to evoke a readiness for romance without revealing anything private. Friends described Romero as extremely secretive, always guarding his personal boundaries as a reflex of deep-seated wounds. When he died in 1994, obituaries praised 6 decades of dedication to cinema without mentioning the questions that had haunted him his entire life. Cesar Romero's silence was not a weakness, but a carefully calculated survival strategy in an industry that once punished honesty. Cesar Romero. His portrayal of the Joker in the 1960s Batman film series cemented his image in popular culture, creating a dramatic and charming villain that influenced how the Joker was perceived for generations to come. On screen, he was colorful and confident, but in real life, his decades-long celibacy fueled endless speculation, which Romero skillfully avoided. He appeared at film premieres alongside glamorous actresses, convincingly portraying Latina lovers, and never directly addressed the persistent rumors. In Hollywood, many understood the reality, but to the public, everything remained vaguely discussed, never confirmed. Romero's career spanned the 1930s to the 1980s, long enough to witness the changes in how Hollywood dealt with gender and sexuality, yet he never felt safe enough to speak the truth. His refined charm served as the perfect armor, and his public image was subtly crafted to evoke a readiness for romance without revealing anything private. Friends described Romero as extremely secretive, always guarding his personal boundaries as a reflex of deep-seated wounds. When he died in 1994, obituaries praised 6 decades of dedication to cinema without mentioning the questions that had haunted him his entire life. Cesar Romero's silence was not a weakness, but a carefully calculated survival strategy in an industry that once punished honesty. Will Geer. On screen, his portrayal of Grandpa Walton exuded traditional American values, warmth and kindness, making the contrast with his private life even more striking. From the 1930s, Geer had a relationship with Harry Hay, who later founded the Mattachine Society, one of the first gay rights organizations in the United States. Although he later married actress Herta Ware and had 3 children, Geer remained open with his wife about his sexual orientation, a rare honesty in a time of intense pressure. His left-wing political views and active social activism led to his blacklisting during the McCarthy era, forcing him to leave Hollywood and make a living on stage, even building his own open-air theater to survive. When the Waltons revived his career in the 1970s, Geer carried with him the memories of decades of repression and marginalization. His social activism extended beyond LGBTQ+ rights to the labor and civil rights movements, further solidifying his status as a thorn in the side of conservatives. Throughout his life, Geer's personal relationships encompassed both men and women, but openly discussing this remained a challenge during the height of his career. When Will Geer died in 1978, obituaries largely celebrated his acting legacy, largely ignoring his political history and complex personal life. Geer's story illustrates how political persecution intersected with discrimination based on sexual orientation, exacerbating the dangers faced by outspoken artists. His resilience during his blacklisting years and his quiet advocacy efforts helped lay the groundwork for later advocacy movements. Jim Neighbors. He created one of the most beloved characters in American television history with Gomer Pyle, an innocent and optimistic figure who helped shape the concept of wholesome entertainment for an entire era. However, behind that gentle smile, Neighbors faced rumors and speculation that lasted for decades. His single life and close friendship with Rock Hudson only fueled further public questioning. Hollywood's unwritten rules turned some friendships into objects of scrutiny, leading to suspicion simply because they were so close. To escape this scrutiny, Neighbors moved to Hawaii in the 1970s, seeking privacy and peace. There, he continued to build a solid career through concerts and selective television appearances, while his personal life remained strictly private. The contrast between Gomer Pyle's wholesome image and the rumors surrounding Neighbors creates a paradox that audiences seem to have chosen to overlook. It wasn't until 2013, at the age of 82, that he married his partner of 38 years, Stan Cadwallader, just 1 month after same-sex marriage was legalized in Washington state. This announcement surprised many, even though close friends had known the truth for a long time. Jim Neighbors' public coming out only came after legal obstacles had been removed and his career had come to an end. When he died in 2017, Neighbors had only 4 years left to live publicly as a husband, a quiet testament to the fear that even the most beloved artists carry throughout their careers. Tony Randall. His role as Felix Unger in The Odd Couple made him an icon of sophistication, neatness, and elegance, a rare example of an intellectual man on American television. His refined gestures, calm voice, and stage presence shaped the character so deeply that they almost merged with Randall's real-life persona. But these very qualities fueled decades of speculation about his personal life, questions Randall never directly answered. He married twice, first to Florence Gibbs for nearly 50 years until her death. Then, in a surprising turn of events, he remarried Heather Harlan, who was more than 50 years younger than him, and fathered 2 children in his 70s. This second marriage both eased and reignited decades of speculation. In the entertainment world, there was debate about whether Randall's marriages were the result of genuine commitment or arrangements to protect his family and image, but there was never a clear answer. His elegance, passion for opera and classical theater, background fit stereotypes that made him susceptible to speculation, regardless of the truth. Randall chose to focus entirely on his career, avoiding any personal discussion, even in the most friendly interviews. Friends described him as extremely private, separating his private life with almost rigid discipline. When Tony Randall died in 2004, rumors persisted even in obituaries, demonstrating how speculation sometimes outlasts the person themselves. His story exposes the awkward position of artists whose personalities don't fit rigid expectations of masculinity, and shows how tightly Hollywood controls the image of the accepted man, readily punishing anyone who dares to step outside those narrow boundaries. Clifton Webb. His sharp and nuanced performances in films like Sitting Pretty shaped the concept of Hollywood elegance in the mid-20th century. His refined demeanor, deep voice, and precise gestures made Webb an unmistakable face. His close relationship with his mother, with whom he lived for decades, quickly became the subject of tabloid gossip, a coded interpretation of his personal life that audiences could understand implicitly without needing confirmation. Clifton Webb never married, nor did he publicly acknowledge any romantic relationships, always skillfully evading questions about his private life. His career peaked in the 1940s and 1950s, but this came with a clear awareness of the fragility of his position. Hollywood allowed some artists to exist as respectable bachelors as long as they maintained a reasonable degree of public denial. Webb's subtlety was accepted as part of the entertainment industry's performance, but a single public acknowledgement could instantly shatter an entire career. When he died in 1966, Clifton Webb's private life remained shrouded in secrecy, closing more than 4 decades of living under Hollywood's watchful eye without ever revealing anything conclusive. His story illustrates how social status, wealth, and refined manners can sometimes become a protective shield, granting certain artists a privacy privilege that many others of their time never had. Marjorie Maine built a brilliant career playing Ma Kettle, the image of a simple, boisterous yet warm patriarchal mother in the hit TV series, becoming an icon of the ordinary American family on screen. This innocent and relatable image was in stark contrast to her private life, which Marjorie Maine fiercely protected from public scrutiny. She was briefly married early in her career, but after her husband's death, Maine lived for decades with actress Spring Byington. The two were inseparable both professionally and personally, sharing a home and frequently appearing together, creating an undeniable intimacy. Hollywood quickly fabricated rumors, but Maine's image as a gentle, lovable mother became the perfect shield. Film studios invested heavily in her family-friendly image and actively suppressed any stories that could threaten box office revenue. Marjorie Maine never responded to the rumors, steadfastly maintaining a clear line between her public and private life. When she died in 1975, her relationship with Spring Byington was still described gently as a deep friendship. Maine's story shows that female artists face just as intense pressure as their male counterparts. While this scrutiny sometimes takes different forms, their success still depends on maintaining a traditional feminine image, not revealing any family structure that deviates from the norms accepted by Hollywood. Agnes Moorehead's portrayal of Endora in Bewitched made her a television icon. Her dramatic presence, sharp voice, and overwhelming charisma shaping an unforgettable character. But alongside her dazzling screen success, Moorehead faced persistent speculation about her personal life throughout her decades-long career. These rumors were not harmless. They deeply hurt her, to the point that Moorehead repeatedly publicly denied them and expressed the pain she endured. Her 2 short marriages ended in divorce, and later her close friendships with other women became targets of unwanted scrutiny. As a devout Presbyterian, Moorehead viewed these speculations as a serious insult to her character and faith. Her story illustrates how insinuations, even without evidence, can cause real harm, regardless of the truth. Hollywood's gossip machine doesn't distinguish between fact and fiction, treating speculation like a foregone conclusion. Even though Agnes Moorehead's career spanned nearly half a century and was marked by a host of memorable roles, she spent much of her time protecting her private life instead of being free to live it. When she died in 1974, rumors continued to appear in her obituaries, demonstrating how public perception can completely drown out the voice and affirmation of the person involved. Moorehead's story further complicates this overall picture, showing that sometimes it is speculation, not identity or truth, that becomes a damaging weapon. Paul Winchell. The art of ventriloquism propelled Paul Winchell to stardom in children's television, with Jerry Mahoney and the goofy Mr. Smith becoming iconic characters in the childhoods of millions. Behind that innocent, family-friendly facade lay a man who faced the same anxieties as his colleagues in the acting world. 3 marriages and 6 children seemed to perfectly solidify Winchell's friendly, trustworthy public image, but within the industry, whispers of tension between public image and private life simmered. The pressure on children's entertainers is particularly intense, as their careers depend entirely on parental trust and an impeccable image. A single misstep could destroy not just an individual, but an entire entertainment industry. Therefore, Winchell maintained a high degree of vigilance throughout his decades-long career, erecting strict boundaries between his private life and the stage. He was not only an artist, but also a rare creative mind, contributing to the invention of the first artificial hearts, demonstrating a human being who refused to be confined within any mold. When Paul Winchell died in 2005, his legacy was remembered through laughter and creativity, while his personal complexities remained somewhat obscured. 17 artists, 17 different ways of surviving in an industry built on almost impossible choices. Some only found freedom in their twilight years, some carried silence to the end of their lives, and some became activists against their will when the truth was exposed. These are not scandalous stories, but stories of the weary price of fame in an age that forced people to erase themselves to achieve success. Which story surprised you the most? Do you think Hollywood has truly changed, or have the boundaries simply been redrawn in a different form? Share your thoughts, because these conversations remain relevant today.